Welcome to Chinwag Tuesdays, your passport to a world of language and culture. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chinwag Tuesdays. I'm Amanda, and today's special guest is Mohit, a former international student from India now living in Adelaide. So, Mohit says that his purpose is empowering migrants to achieve their dreams by creating strong reading and writing habits. I love it. Thanks for coming on today, Mohit.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. Thank you.
So maybe we can start off with a bit of a self-introduction. I mean, I've given a little bit of your background, not too much. So a bit about your background. You're in Adelaide. What do you do there now? And what inspired you to start your reading 100 books as a challenge?
So this is my favorite question. I've been preparing for this all my life, I guess. So I'll actually start from where I moved. My background is that I have a bachelor's in computer engineering. I did work for 3 years in India, and this is back in Mumbai. I worked for 3 years, and then I had a look at my peers, and I said that this is not for me. I don't want to do this anymore. So my mom and dad, they both are basketball players, and they were involved in basketball like all their life. So I just one day walked up to them and said that I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm done with anything that has to do with engineering. And I would love to move abroad and do sports management because I did not want to start from scratch in India. And they were like very supportive of my decision. And I think so up till that point in my life, I was conforming, like I was just following the herd and just doing what everyone else was doing, trying to play it like really safe. And that made me really unhappy. So my parents were really, I did tell them that I think so I want to take responsibility for my life. And I think so sports management is step number one. And I did a lot of research. I saw universities in Europe, in US. I actually wanted to go to the US because I've been watching English movies for a long time and mostly US based English movies. And I thought that I'll always end up in the US. But then I saw that it's really easy to like move to Australia because you don't have to give a lot of exams. You have to give an English test. And I was pretty confident in giving an English test. And so I came here, I came to Melbourne. I did my sports management from Deakin University. And unfortunately, I graduated during peak COVID in Melbourne.
Oh, no. So an online graduation?
So we didn't even get an online graduation. We just got like just a small graduation ceremony that was like almost 8 months after we graduated, and we all had like full-time jobs and stuff. Yeah, so it was actually during COVID. So there were just two jobs available during COVID in Melbourne. You either work at the supermarket or you work as a cleaner. So I tried both. I worked at Aldi for like 3 to 4 weeks, and they micromanaged me. They were micromanaging me too much, and I said this is not for me. So I did apply for a cleaning role, and I got it. And I saw that there was like minimal supervision with cleaning. So I was like, this is amazing. Let's do this. But then, yeah, after a couple of months, I started questioning my move to Australia, that I had a very cushy and stable and secure life back in India. Why did I make the decision to move to Australia? So there is this philosopher called Friedrich Nietzsche, right? He says that when you're really tired, you have to like go through everything that you conquered in the past again. So that is what was happening to me while I was cleaning. One day I just go back home and I literally Googled, like very funny thing. I literally Googled that what to do when your passion is not working for you. Because I tried following the herd, it did not work for me. And now even my passion was not working for me because the first thing that the Australian government cancelled was sport because it had physical contact. And that's exactly why I moved to Australia, is to study and work in sport. So when I did that simple Google search, I came across a word called purpose. I was like, this is something new. I've never heard about this word called purpose. And then I came across two books, which was started by Simon Sinek. And the second book was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So I did end up reading these two books, but it took me, I think, so around 3 to 4 months to read two books. And then I was like, this was really interesting. And let me read more books. So I guess I read Sapiens, and I read a couple other books, which I don't remember what they were. So I was telling myself 5 books in 7 months is not that bad. And so as soon as so restrictions were lifted and life was back to normal, I actually went and interviewed for a role. And while I was talking, there were these words that were coming out of my mouth. Like I was able to articulate my thoughts so well, but I had not done it before. And although I was a bit hesitant and I was reluctant to share those thoughts, but I was like, it's coming out really naturally. So just let it go. Like just
Yeah.
feel free to like share whatever you have to. This is me talking to myself. And I did land that job. And while I was going back home after the interview, I was just shocked and surprised at the same time that what just happened. Like I don't know what happened. But then I
Yeah.
realized that it was all those books that I was reading. It was like a
Mm.
culmination of everything. And it
Yeah.
really helped me with my interview skills. And that is how like reading has impacted my life. And that is how I actually started reading.
Yeah. Wow. That's so incredible. I'm an English teacher. I didn't really give much of a background about what I do. Sorry, before we started this. I teach English online to people, Aussie English with Amanda. It's back to front, but you can see it here. So I teach English to professional immigrants, students in Australia or planning to move to Australia. And I always tell them reading is a really, I think, underrated way of improving so many different skills. And you've kind of just solidified that with what you've just shared about the knowledge that you've gained, the vocabulary that you were able to pick up, and being able to articulate your thoughts. So that's a really great insight. Thank you for sharing.
No, all good, all good.
I'm just curious, computer engineering, is that something you did because you thought you should be doing? Because I know here in
Yes,
India, engineering is obviously especially computer
yes.
engineering, right? It's one of those things. So is that why you chose computer engineering in the beginning?
No, I actually chose because so once I finished grade, I had got really good marks in maths and science. So my
Okay,
parents were like, since you got such good marks, like why don't you choose something that has got a background of science in it?
sure.
So I did that. I did that for my high schooling, and then I was like, since I've done this, might as well do engineering because everyone else is doing it. So I
Yeah, okay.
originally wanted to do mechanical engineering, but then my grade 12 marks were very poor. They were like below
Mm,
average. And so that was actually a sign, right, that it is not working for me. But then I was like,
yeah,
I just pushed, and at that moment, I did not have proper guidance or direction. And I just went ahead and did something that everyone else was doing. And I
yeah,
was like, I might not get admission in a
mm,
university for mechanical engineering, but I will just do whatever engineering I can. And computer
yeah,
engineering turned out to be something that was not in demand at that time. And that's why I got admission
yeah,
for
wow.
computer engineering. And I just ended
Yeah.
up doing that. And I was a very bad computer engineer, like very bad. But then I saw that because I was watching a lot of movies, I wasn't reading books back then, but I used to watch a lot of movies. I was a person who would pause a movie, like I'll take a look at the word that I don't understand and I will actually Google the meaning.
Oh, that's great.
This,
That's what
yes.
people should be doing when improving a language. Yeah, good for you.
And people who were watching with me hated that. They were like, is this like a pause party or is it like a movie party? But I was like, I don't know the meaning of the word. I'll not be able to sleep if I don't know the meaning of the
Yeah,
word.
wow.
So that's how I got really good at it. And I did use that skill of mine for the wrong thing in engineering, is where I used
Mm,
to write applications for my friends. Like they would miss university and they would be like, can you write a good application for me saying, why did I miss university? And we will pay you 50 rupees for it. So I was like, so I don't know, I had
You are
some sort of,
undercharging yourself 50 rupees. That's like less than $1.
yes.
Back
And
then it would
that
have been a
time,
dollar.
yes. And I don't know, I had some sort of a principle back then, and even have it now that I don't want your money. I would rather have a Baskin Robbins Sunday ice cream than take your money.
Yeah,
Um,
that's nice. Because what Baskin and Robbins is a bit more than 50 rupees, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So my barter system was a bit different, and that is what I actually enjoyed doing. And what
Mm,
used to happen is that, especially during the last month leading up to exams, my business would be like amazing because there would be a lot of
yeah,
people coming in for their applications, and it would be really good. So I think
a
so. I
lot of
used
ice
my
creams.
That's right, a lot of ice creams, and if I get tired of eating ice creams, I would be like, just treat me to something savory.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I love that.
If it was
So
not
what?
something that I chose, it just
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It came to you.
Yes.
So what do you do now? What's your job now?
So when I graduated after doing my sports management, I did work in Melbourne for a year. So that was more into like sport administration and
Sure.
sport event management. But then I realized that I would not be getting a visa for my occupation in Victoria. So
Hmm.
I did my research and understood that South Australia or ACT is the place for me to go if I
Okay.
want to live long term in Australia. So I decided South Australia, but I was so angry back then because there was an external situation slash circumstance trying to control my life. I was like, when will I actually get my freedom? When will I actually get to choose? The only thing that I've chosen in Australia is my university and my course. After that, I've not
Yeah,
chosen anything. It was always an external situation slash
sure.
circumstance controlling my life. So I told
Mm,
myself that I'm going to choose the best job available for my skills and my expertise. I think so.
yeah,
One of the reasons for what do you call this? This sort of confidence, like uninformed confidence, was because I was reading so much and I never really understood that I started believing in myself. I started
mm,
becoming more confident. And whenever
yeah.
I look at myself in the mirror, I was seeing a person who's becoming better by 1%
Wow.
every day. And the
Yeah,
only reason I'm able to like articulate all this is because I journal very heavily now because I also write on
amazing.
LinkedIn. So yes, I need to ensure that I'm working on myself like every day. And that's why
Yeah,
I'm able to say all of this when I look back at my
yeah.
journey. So I used to apply for a job. So it was do or die also for me because my survival in Australia was dependent on the job that I'm going to get in South
True.
Australia. And I was going to get married in the coming year. I knew that because my wife and I had already spoken about it that let's get married soon. Because of COVID, we were already doing like long distance. It was like 3.5 years of
Oh,
long distance already.
yeah.
Yes. So what I used to do is that I don't recommend this to people, but what I used to do is I would apply for a job and I would start preparing for the interview. Like I wouldn't wait for them to get back to me. So
Mm,
I would apply for 3 or 4 good jobs that I really want to do, like that I really want to work, the organization that I really want to work with. And I would start preparing for the interview.
mm,
And for the biggest example is this conversation that we are having, right? Like it did not happen that you contacted me or I contacted you and then I got this opportunity and then I said that
yes.
let me start preparing for it now.
Mm,
So that is what happened with that job. It was like I prepared for it for such a long time that when the opportunity came, I was ready. Similar to this
yeah,
conversation that we are having, that
yeah,
I prepared for this for so long that when the opportunity comes, like I'm ready. So
yeah.
my designation is project officer. So I work with the government of South Australia. The organization is called Office for Recreation, Sport and Racing, and I've been there since Feb 2022.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love hearing this kind of stuff. I have my journal here, which I've recently started writing in again, but I kind of lost myself for a bit, to be honest. But I am usually someone that's a big believer in gratitude manifestations. And it sounds like what you're describing about applying for a job and then preparing for it, you're almost manifesting that, aren't you? Because you're looking at yourself and you're imagining yourself in that job, in that position. And that's what manifesting is all about. And the reading that you've done, the journaling that you do is helping with your self growth. And it's so important. People neglect this so much. And I know I did. I didn't do any of that. And then I moved to India in June 2019, got
Mhm.
married in November 2019, and then the following March, COVID happened. So all of my plans as a newly married couple gone because we had like one of the world's strictest lockdowns twice. So in between that, I had started this kind of journey on self growth and self development, personal development, which I really truly believe now that what I do teaching English is a byproduct of that self growth that I did. Like all of that work I was doing, I ended up being diagnosed with a mental health disorder a couple of months after I started this journey, but I started the journey before being diagnosed. So everything I feel like is kind of a byproduct to where I am today. So I really love hearing about your story and your journey because I feel like I can relate to a few parts of it, especially about the reading side and kind of developing ourselves.
Thank you so much for sharing that side of your story. And that's what it was, right? Like when I started reading books, I understood something that what does it mean to be a man? Like it
Mm,
does not mean that you always are strong and you show the
yeah,
world that you are like very strong and you always have the shield up. We feel that I'm really, really strong, but actually I have a shield up which does not allow I don't allow people to get in. So I
yeah.
read this book, Daring Greatly by Brené Brown.
Oh,
And then
yep.
I understood that if I do not increase vulnerability in a conversation that I'm having with someone, I will never be able to reduce shame. And the only person who's able to do that is someone who works on themselves continuously. And then they
Yeah.
started accepting every part of their story. You don't say that, I
Yes.
don't like this part or I don't like that part. You just start
Yeah.
accepting everything. And
Yeah.
I believe, like, I'm a firm believer that personal excellence is the answer to every oppression out there, like every
Yeah.
challenge, every obstacle that you have. And there's
Yeah.
this book by Napoleon Hill called Law of Success. So it's a 750
I've
page book.
seen it. It's
Yes.
huge.
So I've read that. I've read that 10 times because I
Oh my
wanted that
God,
book to
amazing.
become, yes, I wanted that book to become a part of my identity. So I just kept
Yeah.
reading it again and again. And there are a few books which I can probably share in the end that
Yeah,
I would say have
please.
become a part of my identity. Law of
Yeah.
Success by Napoleon Hill is one of those books.
Yeah.
So there are three words in the book that I really like. So he just says that life is growth through struggle. Like out of those
Yeah.
750 pages, I just love those three words, like growth through struggle. That is what life is all
Yes.
about.
Oh my
Like,
God, it is, isn't it? It really is growth through struggle. That's amazing. That's, yeah, 100% agree. Growth through struggle. I should get that on my pin board.
yes. And so when I started reading Napoleon Hill books, I also found someone who later on then became my mentor. And he told me once that I used to always go to him and complain, right? Like I would say that I'm really curious person, but nothing happens after that. So
Mm,
he usually tells me that curiosity is good, but if you do not act on it, you will never be
mm.
confident.
Yeah.
And he has a saying which he told me that a dream without work is just a dream, and
Yes.
work without dream is drudgery. It's like boring.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Always think about
Yes.
this.
True. Yeah. Something to keep in the forefront of your mind, I guess. So, what would you say is your favorite book that you've read so far, the one that's made probably the biggest impact on your life, if you have one?
I do have. I think so. The first book that really made me go on this journey of personal transformation is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. I think so.
Okay.
I would say that is a book that I've read the most number of times.
Yeah.
And close second to that book is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. That
She's the
is
Eat, Pray, Love author, isn't she?
Yes, and very few people know that she has a book called Big Magic, which is all about creativity, and it is amazing. Like
Wow.
whenever I
Okay.
feel like I don't want to share something or I don't feel like doing this, I just go and read whatever I've highlighted in the book,
Yes.
and it's like I'm like, wow, I'm energized again. It just feels like I'm
Yeah.
reading a new book every time I read that book.
Yeah. I'll have to write that down. When I edit, I'm going to write down all these book names. The reason I asked is because the biggest book that's made my biggest impact, this one, Atomic Habit.
Atomic Habits, yes.
So this
I
is,
think every page has a nugget of wisdom, and
yes, 100%.
every page.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something that I found so much value out of this. And it's probably the best self-development book that I've read since I started my journey of self-growth and development back in 2020. But yeah, and I actually use examples of this book when I'm teaching. And I try to teach my students about building up study habits for learning a language or improving their language. It's funny though, because I give people this advice and I don't do it myself for Hindi. I'm trying to. But anyway, yes, I think it's really great the advice that it gives. I read it originally online, like just an ebook I borrowed from the library because I still have access to my Australian library account. And then I bought the hard copy, yeah, paperback, because I wanted to highlight in it. But yeah, it's probably my favorite book.
I think a physical book is much, much better than any digital copy because the look and feel and the like.
Yeah,
So I read this survey, not survey, I read a research which said that why a physical book is much better than a digital copy. So
yeah,
there they give an example of blind people reading a book. Like blind
yeah,
people
true.
cannot read a book until and unless they touch. It's called braille, right? They
Yeah,
cannot until and unless they touch. So that's why hand-eye coordination is very important when you read, and that's why
yeah,
you need to
right.
have a visual pacer. Like just keep it below the line that you're reading, and you'll be
Yeah,
able to focus much better and
yeah,
retain a lot of information that you read.
yeah, true. When I first moved here, I couldn't really buy books. I mean, I didn't know where to buy them. Amazon really wasn't that great at that time. I didn't really know where to buy books. And because when I think my first year of COVID here, I think I read about 150 books, just a lot of novels because I wasn't working.
Wow.
I wasn't
Okay.
allowed to work when I first moved, so I just read a lot. But I've always liked reading, even when I was younger. So I didn't want to just buy a new book every single time. So thankfully, I still had access to my Brisbane, that's where I lived in Australia, my Brisbane library account. And I was just borrowing just any novel that was of interest to me. My books now are a bit more selective, but yeah, at that time, don't ask me about all the books that I read because I read so many, I can't really remember. So, like I said, most of them were novels. But yeah, during that time, it was like a savior for me because I moved here. I didn't have a purpose. I wasn't allowed to work for like, X amount of time because of visa restrictions. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Couldn't even go outside, couldn't even walk my dog outside. That's how strict the lockdown rules were. So reading was a bit of a savior for me back then.
I would say reading is meditation. Like to put it simply,
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
meditation.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, back in that time, I just couldn't, I didn't buy too many paperbacks or hard copies just because didn't really know what I wanted to read. But then over time, as I've started to find books I enjoyed, then I'm buying them. But in India, they have like, I don't know if they had it when you were here, they have book fairs that go around the country. And basically, you're not purchasing individual books, you're purchasing the size of a box.
Mhm.
And then you walk around, you fill the box up, and then, you leave with your box of books and you pay for the box size itself. But what they do, they let you sell your old books there. So I would buy a bunch of books, read them, and then any books I didn't want to keep where I'm like, I'm not going to read them again, I would just take them back and sell them back to them. So that worked out quite well when that started. But I haven't been to a book fair in a while to be able to do that.
A really great concept, but I used to not read a lot when I was back in India, so I would have no idea about this. And I guess India does not have something like Salvos or Red Cross or
No,
Willy's
they
Savers,
don't.
yes. But
Nah,
then the
that's
books
not
are really cheap, I would say, 150, 200 rupees, and you can buy like a new
true.
book from
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
street.
Yeah, they've got, yeah, exactly. Like, I think I was in Delhi last year on my way back to Australia and we went through like Connaught Place and they have like, people selling books on the side of the road and stuff like
Yes,
that. And they are super, super cheap, but the quality matches the price. I will say that.
yes,
I've
100%.
got a
Yes,
couple of books. Like, have you heard of The Secret?
yes, I have, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, so this one's not too bad, the quality, but there's about four different books. This is the second one. And yeah, anyway, the quality is, you can't tell through camera, but the quality is pretty average.
I think they
But
just use a photocopier to create copies. That's why it's like
yeah,
so cheap.
probably. Yeah, it probably looks like it by the cover. Well, this one was actually 350, but I think I got it on Amazon for about half price.
Like even if so, what I do is that I usually, if I know someone's coming from India to Australia, I just tell them, "Can you get these two books for me from
Oh,
India?"
great idea.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
how I
that's a good
created my
idea.
bookshelf. Yes.
Oh, true. Oh, there you go. That's actually a really good idea because books in Australia are expensive.
I usually get them from op shops, but you have to search a lot. But I feel that is like very therapeutic for me, like just searching for
Yeah.
books that, and I don't know what I'm going to find because it's an op shop.
Yeah, true. I like that. Where I used to live in Brisbane, there was a secondhand bookshop just like around the corner from my place, and the aisles were so tiny you could just fit one person, and there was books like from top to bottom. And yeah, you wouldn't know what you're going to find. And then when I was moving to India, I had all these books that I couldn't bring with me or I didn't want them anymore. And rather than taking them to, Vinnie's or Salvos, I actually just donated them back to that bookshop. And then I found out like a couple of months later, he was closing down. So he was selling everything off really cheap. But I'm glad I put them back there because I got a lot of the books from there. So I kind of just donated them back.
No, great idea. I think it's really sustainable also. Like when you get it from op shops or you go to these book fairs, it's a really
Yeah,
sustainable way of like
definitely.
reading
Yeah,
and helping others also.
true. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right. So, what advice would you give to migrants in Australia about developing strong reading and writing habits? You say that you're a big journaler. Obviously, you're a big reader. So, yeah, what advice would you say to develop these skills?
I think I learned it the hard way. So I felt that, let's say that I just do a search on Amazon, like top 100 books, and I buy the first 10 books that I see. It might be that I might read all the 10 books and I would not like even one. So I feel that if we are not emotionally connected to the book that we are reading, we will never be able to read it completely. So that is
True.
why it is important to like really ask yourself that, like, whatever your name is, like, hey Mohit, I'm asking you really nicely, what are a few things that you want to work on but you've been avoiding for a long time? And it can be anything. The answer might be time management, productivity, habits, anything. So once you
Mm.
get those categories down, go and search for books in those categories and probably buy 4 or 5 books, because you always want to have books in reserve. Because if you just have one book and you give that book up, you'll be like, reading is not for me. You just quit. Like, for
Yes.
example, in Atomic Habits, he says, right, like, make it easy, make it comfortable, make
Mm.
things accessible if you want to build a habit. So
Yeah.
just, if you have 4 or 5 books, just keep it like everywhere. Just keep one book everywhere in the house. And so wherever you're going, instead of picking up your phone, you'll be like, the book is already over here. So just let me read this book, make it really accessible. And whenever you're sitting down to read, our peripheral. So in 2021, I went through a phase where I learned this through in a very hard way, and I understood that my favorite topics are mindset, human psychology, and behavior. This is what I really like why people think the way they think, and why
Mm.
I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, and why perspectives differ from person to person, and yet we are able to achieve our goals. Like, how, why is all that happening? And that is how I actually learned this emotional connection with a book that everyone should have. And that is how you can probably develop a great reading habit and make it
Yeah.
easy, right? Like, as soon as I say people that this is Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, it's an amazing book, 700-page book. So as soon as those words 700 leave my mouth, that person is never going to read it.
They're gone.
They're gone. But then and I did that with friends when I initially started reading. I told them that I read Start With Why, Man's Search for Meaning, Sapiens, amazing. And then someone asked me that, how big is Sapiens? I would say maybe 400 pages. They would be like, 400? I do not have time for that. And then they go and check the price on Amazon. It's like $20. I'm not paying $20 for a book. And at that
Yeah.
moment, you
They're
cannot,
building resistance, aren't they?
yes. And even I had to slowly learn that what's the difference between expense and investment. And at that moment, I did not have the words to tell them that this is actually an investment in
Yeah.
yourself. You just buy a $20 book and you read it 10 times. It gives you like, what a great investment. What a great investment. I think so. So
Yeah.
as emotionally connect with the book, make it easy for yourself. Probably
Mm.
get a like. There are a few books that I usually recommend to people, like The Go Giver. It's like I guess it's a 75 to 100 page book. Who Moved My Cheese? A very 50 to 55 page book. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. That's a really good book to read. The
Yes.
Magic of Thinking Big. Such a simple and easy book written in the 1950s, and it really helps with your image, your confidence, your
Mm.
self-esteem. So these are the few books that I usually recommend people to read.
Okay. Yeah, great. I really love the idea about having books accessible. So have them in different parts of the room. I would love to do that in my bedroom, but I have 3 dogs and I'm pretty sure one of them would chew it if I kept it. Oh, but I've got drawers. I can keep it in the drawer.
But you'll not be
But
able to see it, so it's difficult.
exactly, that defeats the purpose, right? Yes.
Yes.
So I mean that would be ideal, but I guarantee that one of them would chew it.
And I think so. I didn't touch on two things, the peripheral thing. So our peripheral has been, so we have evolved as humans for a long period of time, but our brain hasn't evolved that much. So that is why we still have the survival instinct that our ancestors had. So that is why we get so distracted by something that is kept in our peripheral. Like, let's say I'm reading and a notification pops up and the screen lights
Yes.
up. So I will see there because it's a survival instinct. I have to make sure
Yeah.
that I'm safe. We feel that
Yes.
it's nothing, it's just a notification, but then it's a survival instinct. And that's why just keep, in Atomic Habits, he does mention that keep the phone in another room or
Yeah.
keep the laptop in another room and make sure that you don't have anything in your peripheral to
Yeah.
so that you're distracted.
Yeah. I actually just yesterday, it's arriving today, I bought a new tablet because I actually do like still read on devices, but I get too distracted reading on my phone because of notifications. So I figured I used to read on an iPad, but the iPad's really old and it's starting to break now. So I'm like, I'm going to get this little tablet. I'll use it really just for reading, turn the notifications off, and then I'll dedicate it just to reading that way. Oh, if I have my phone, I'll put that on Do Not Disturb and I will um, hopefully not get distracted by my phone, because I get distracted so easily. Like my mind's always going 100 miles an hour. It's like I'm doing this and then this thing will happen, or I'll think of this or I'll think of that. Like, yeah.
So for that, there's something called distraction journal. So
Okay.
let's say, and so I have like two books now, so my reading is very advanced. So I have two books. One is for my notes that whatever I'm reading from the book, I want to write down something, I write that down. And one I
Nice.
have is a distraction journal. Now it's usually post-it notes. So what happens is that, let's say that I'm reading, and so, because reading is something that you do in silence, right? So your mind
Yes.
will just jump from here to there. And let's say I'm reading, and I remember that, oh, I did not buy onions from like Woolworths
Yeah,
yesterday.
that's what happens to me. Yes.
Then you close the book and you sit down and you think about when you will be buying onions from Woolworths again.
Oh, I'm feeling very attacked right now. This is me.
So you just write that down on a post-it note, because when you write
Oh,
something down, your brain does not have the ability to think about something else. But if you
yes.
don't write it down, it's all in your head. Like you are not able to see it. But once you see
Yeah.
it, it's out of your mind and you say that, okay, I've seen it. I'll take care of this later. All good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep a little book with me all the time, like a little notepad or something that can be my distraction journal. So that when I am doing something, because it happens when I work, because I just spent the last couple of months creating an online course for mastering Australian English. And I'd be working on that, and then something would pop into my mind, and then something else. So I need to have something where I just write about whatever pops into my head. So I'll also do that when I'm reading, because that's a big problem for me, is I get really distracted. And that is one of the reasons why I get so distracted reading on my phone. And I haven't really been able to read too much over the past year, really. My reading habits have definitely gone down, but I am in the middle of, what's it called? How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you read this one?
Wow. Oh, yes, what a book. So I usually recommend Migrants a trifecta of books. Number
Yeah.
one is Start with Why. Number two is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And number three is The Magic of Thinking Big. So you
Okay.
work on your purpose, you work on your communication, and you work on your confidence, and you're golden for interviews.
Yeah, wow. Well, yes, this is the only book that I'm reading at the moment that's a physical book. The rest are on my phone, but I might try and leave this one in my room or around the house. That way it's there. I'm going to use that tip.
And Dale Carnegie is amazing. So I guess this book was originally written for door-to-door salespeople.
Yes. Yeah,
And that's why it's so
I think I've
amazing.
read that part. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, it makes me so excited. Today's my day off, so I'm going to I am trying to spend my day off doing nothing, as in no work or anything. So I think today will be a day of reading. You've inspired me.
And whatever you're saying is actually prompts for me. So one more thing I would like to add is that read nonfiction in the morning and read fiction in the night, because your brain is actually like a mobile battery that can be only charged once, and sleep is that charger. So when you get up in the morning, your brain is at 100% ready to think critically.
Okay.
It is ready to do logical reasoning. It's ready to solve problems. So that is when you
Yes.
read nonfiction, like something difficult. And when you're going to
True.
sleep in the night, you read something that is fantasy or sci-fi or
Oh yeah,
mystery,
that's what I've
thriller.
got back here. Lots of
Yes.
not lots of fiction of that. Oh my gosh. Okay, this has made me so excited to start my reading habits again. So all right, I'll do that. I'll keep my non-fiction for the morning, and then I'll have to find a fiction book to read, because most books I've got ongoing right now are like non-fiction. So I'll try and find a novel. I know what I haven't read down there, but there's a lot there I haven't read, so I'll find something. All right. So, how do you believe strong reading and writing skills can help migrants adapt and thrive in Australia?
The answer to this is something that I heard a different version of this on a podcast. I don't remember where. So it's called identity, action, and feeling. So let's say that you decide that I want to have an identity of a person who calls themselves a reader slash writer. So I
Mm-hmm.
get up in the morning and I say that I want to be a reader. So what's the action that I need to take? I have to read. And what happens? What's the feeling that I get? That I accomplished something. And it feels really good. And after a certain point, this compounds. And let's say you go reverse. Let's say that you start with feeling. You say that
Mm.
I just got up. I don't feel like reading. So you don't take any action. So you never reach your identity. So always ask yourself that who you want to be, or who are you? Like, how do you
Mm.
identify yourself? So like
Yeah.
a lot of people like get into this, I call it the quicksand. They feel that I am a business analyst. So I ask them that when you enter your house after you come back from work, do you announce that the business analyst has returned? No, right? You do not do that
Yeah.
because like you sometimes get so bogged down with that professional side of your life that you forget that like I've left work and I've come back home. And let's say, and this has happened to a lot of people, I do ask them that question so they don't have an answer for it, and then they lose their job. So when they lose their job, what do you tell yourself now? You were so
Mm.
proud and you were so happy that I am a business analyst or I
Yeah.
am a civil engineer, whatever. Now you've lost your job. So you basically lost your identity. So
True.
that is why you need to have an identity that you can use lifelong. Like then you ask yourself that, do you think I can be a lifelong reader? Yes. Can I be a lifelong writer? Yes. Can I talk to people lifelong? Yes. So you be that person. So that should be your identity. And
Yeah.
identity, action, and then the feeling comes. And when you go in reverse, you might get stuck.
Mm.
So that's why it's really important to read so that you get more ideas about the world. And it is
Yeah.
important to write so that you understand yourself much better. So
Yeah.
solve one person's problem first, which is your own problem, before you start solving other people's problem.
Yeah. What you're saying, there's something similar in Atomic Habits, isn't there? About how he says he uses yoga as an example, where if you keep telling yourself, I'm not someone, I don't do yoga, I'm not a yoga person. If you keep telling yourself you're not a certain
Yes.
type of person, you're never going to know unless you try.
Your
And
subconscious mind is listening.
exactly. And that's something I started to
Mm.
try and, because I used to be that person. I would say, oh, I'm not this person, I'm not that person. Marvel movies, perfect example. I was someone that was like, I don't like Marvel movies. I don't like action movies because for so long I actually didn't. But then I had been telling myself this for so long that I never actually opened my mind to maybe my tastes and preferences have changed. And then one day I actually watched a Marvel movie and I was like, oh my God, love it. Went through and like watched all the Marvel movies in order and sequence. So now I try and be a bit more open minded and I'm a bit more mindful about my self-talk. If I say, no, I'm not this kind of person, I try and say, yes, I'm not a, whatever he says, I can't remember now, but something like that. I try and be a bit more open and careful about the words I tell myself.
Yes, you have to be like very careful because I think so a lot of times we just give ourselves a label that is not true at
Yes,
all. And the
exactly. And
biggest
we get
label,
stuck.
yes, we get stuck. We do get stuck because for many years I used to call myself shy, but then I realized that's not a personality trait, nor is it a character trait. It's nothing. It's just something
Yeah.
that I've heard other people tell me or my parents tell me that tell someone
Yeah.
else that he's a shy boy, so that's why he's not talking. So you hear that long enough, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm shy. I don't talk that much.
Yeah.
As if it is something that was written in the constitution and you're abiding by it.
Yeah. It also comes to learning a language too. Like I automatically tell people, like when I speak Hindi, you know Hindi, I'm guessing, because you grew up in
Yes.
Mumbai. Yeah. So
Yes,
like I would
it's very
say
bad.
like,
It's very
yeah,
bad, the Hindi in Mumbai. Like you shouldn't be learning that
Mumbai
Hindi
ka
at all.
Hindi, is that what it's called?
Yes, yes, yes. It's very bad.
So I automatically say to people when I get a brain fog, if I can't think, I automatically say, sorry, meri Hindi achi nahi. Like I
It's really
automatically say
good.
my Hindi is not good. And then they're like, no, that's fine, that's fine. But because I'm always telling myself, sorry, my Hindi is not good, I'm not really allowing myself to grow. So I'm trying not to say that as much anymore. I mean, I just said it a few weeks ago. And that's when I was like, no, I need to stop this because I'm kind of stopping myself from growing. Because I mean, my Hindi is better than it was 3 years ago. It's better. I can't say that it's not good. It's just that I'm learning.
100%. And you will get better with time. And
Yeah.
so I think so, unfortunately, because I read so much, I've become an eternal optimist now. I just cannot believe that it cannot be done. Like even if
Yes,
you
I
tell me that,
agree.
yes, even if you tell me that it cannot be done, I will tell you no, it can be done, even though I know nothing about
Devil's
your
advocate.
background or your life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I that a period of time where I was reading a lot of like manifestation, divine timing, law of attraction sort of books. My mindset definitely improved significantly and I was, more of an optimist. But then some things happened. I stopped reading, and unfortunately my mindset changed, and I've started to acknowledge and realize that it has changed, and I don't like the negative person I've become because of it. So that's why I'm starting to try and rebuild these habits again of reading like positive books, doing these kind of self-care activities of journaling, being, showing gratitude and things like that. So that's sort of where I'm at the moment. I'm trying to be that person again, because I know I can be that person. And I just remember how much my life was better when I was that kind of person, not having these negative feelings kind of holding me down.
This reminds me of a line from Think and Grow Rich. He says that think and act as if you're already in possession of the things that your heart desires.
Yeah, law of attraction. Yeah.
Yes,
100%.
like very simple, right? Like, and he said this in end of 1920s and start of 1930s. It's been 100 years and it's still applicable now. That's why I love reading his content.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. So what are the biggest hurdles migrants face when trying to build new habits? And what are some powerful ways to overcome them? Overthinking. Yeah. Okay. Biggest one. Like what you were saying before about, too many pages. Too expensive. These kind of automatic assumptions and overthinking.
Yes. And I think so another hurdle is that if you lived in India for a while, right? Like it's a third world country, and then you're suddenly in a first world country and you expect that things should be handed to you on a silver platter. I say that, sorry, sir, it does not work that way, or sorry, ma'am, it does not work that way. There is always, I think so, rent to be paid, whatever you're doing, like wherever you are, whatever you're doing, there is always some sort of a rent that needs to be paid. And it might not be a money sort of a thing. It might not be anything related to money. It can be anything else. So like, for example, I made the switch from computer engineering to sport. So but I spoke to a few people who were already in Australia, so I knew what to sort of expect when I come here. But a lot of people come here and they feel that I was a manager back in India, so over here I will get a managerial role once I graduate. Sorry, it does not work that way. And my question is that why did you ever think that something like that is going to happen? Like, why did you preempt something that is going to happen in the future, and how are you so sure that it is going to happen? It does not work that way. So even I had to come here and I did a lot of volunteering in the first 18 to 20 months, which landed me an internship, and then that landed me a full-time role. But if I would have not done that volunteering, it would have been a very tough path for me after I graduate. And that's what happens, right? Those 2 years, and even the monetary difference, right? The economical difference, like one Australian dollar is around 50 to 55 Indian rupees.
True.
So initially, when you see that sort of money, you get into like this egoistic, greedy mode that look how much I'm making in Australia. This is my new MacBook, or this is my new shoes, this is my new Air Jordans. But then that boom period is going to flatten, or is going to completely, so there's this quote which says that as soon as you feel that you arrived at the door of greatness, the door is going to slam on your face. So that is what I always think.
Be
That
humble.
yes, exactly. And I think so volunteering, paying it forward, having a service first attitude, being grateful for where you are. And I publicly acknowledge that I am in a position of privilege right now. Like where I was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and where I am right now is a total position of privilege. And I have not made it here by myself. Like I don't even hundreds, 200 people have probably helped me, like in a very small way, maybe. And I'm really grateful that they made me a part of their journey and they empowered me in my journey. So that is what I would like to say hurdles are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, wow. Great information, great advice. Love it. I love speaking to like-minded people, and I've really enjoyed this conversation as much as I thought I would. So I'm really thankful for your insights. To finish up, though, I just want to find out about, I know you mentioned some of the top books that you would recommend, if you wouldn't mind kind of reiterating those. So for an immigrant coming to Australia, wanting to improve their habits, reading or writing, whatever it is, what books would you recommend they start with?
I feel if you're coming from an English-speaking country, communication might not be that much of a problem for you, but then learning about cultural differences should be something that you should work on. But if you're coming from a country where the first language is not English, I would say start working on your communication and work on the cultural differences on the side. So I was so into like English movies and stuff, so I knew what to expect and what sort of cultural differences are. So there is this author called Susan Cain. She has a book called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. That's the caption of the book. So she did a lot of research on Asian countries versus Western countries. So she said that Asian countries, and since now you're in India, you would understand that social cohesion is a very big part of the Indian culture. But then the
Yeah.
Australian culture promotes individuality, like
Yeah.
being independent.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of people would be stuck in relationships that they can't leave in India because of the social cohesion. And because of the independence, the divorce rates are so high in Australia. So everything has its
Yeah.
pros and cons. And once you start understanding that, you need to understand where you lie, probably on this graph or on this spectrum, and start becoming comfortable with like who you are and work like towards something. And I would say that communication books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Crucial Conversations is a really great book to understand communication in the workplace. How to Talk to Anyone by Lee Lowndes is really good for networking events. Nonviolent Communication is really good for conflict management. Everyone Communicates, Few Connect is a really great book to connect one on one, which is my favorite connection, sort of connection. So I
Yeah.
really struggled with step number one, which is like, "Hi, Amanda, how are you doing?" I find it really difficult to say that. And that is why I started this journey of talking to 500 people, because I wanted to eliminate that. And when I listen to podcasts like on Spotify, I heard this quote where real magic lies in doing the things that you're avoiding. So I've been
Yep.
avoiding initiating a conversation for a long time. But then
Yeah.
I know that my strength is step number two, which is like connecting with people. But if I don't tell you hello, I will never be able to connect with you. So
True.
just give yourself a challenge and start saying hello to Australian people, like Australian citizens. Just say hello, probably
Yeah.
probably like a nod, like make eye contact and smile, because you have to start small, right? Because if you give yourself a big goal that I'm going to connect with one Australian citizen when I leave the house today, you're giving yourself such a big challenge that you're going to like probably chicken out halfway through the challenge. But then
Yeah.
it is much better to say like hello and probably talk to that person if that person wants to have a conversation. And in the end, I tell people that you just need one yes. Like you might get a lot of no's, like with your job search or while talking to people at a networking event, you just require one yes. And even the most confident person in the world is rejected. So there was research done where it said that by the time we are 18 years old, we are rejected 3 or 4 times more than we are accepted for things. Like if you think
Wow.
about children, right? Like a child says, "I want this toy," we say no.
Yeah.
The child says that, I want to go out and play. No. I want to play video games. No. So you listen to more no's than you listen to yes. But then once you accept that, that is the time you'll understand that life is more about rejections and less about acceptance. And yeah, that's what I would say. Work on communication, work on learning about influence, persuasion, learn about sales, because I think so. Sales is seen as something that is a bit icky. Like, oh, I don't like sales. Like, you're a very salesy person, people would say.
Yeah.
But then I ask people in return that, hey, what did you do when you went for the interview? You sold yourself like crazy. You were like begging
True.
them to take you. So
Yeah.
if you're going to be doing that, might as well learn how to get your message across. And
Yeah.
people who have great technical skills struggle with that, like getting their
Yeah.
message across. You might have a lot of technical skills, but also make sure that you're able to articulate what you've done, probably
Yeah.
as a story, because
Mm.
humans love stories, right? That's why
Yeah.
movies, books are all based on stories.
Yeah. Speaking of sales, have you read this book yet? It's an Australian dude. Sell like crazy.
I do have it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, that's where I want to read this one after I finish How to Win Friends and Influence People. So that's also
I
on my list
actually
of books to read.
I actually search for books written by PhD holders because they
Yeah.
spend like their whole life on a single topic and they condense that into a 300-page book. I'm like, why aren't you not reading it? That's what I tell people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I really like what you said though about giving yourself small goals. Again, this is what I tell my students when they're like, I'm too scared to talk to locals. And I'm like, start small. Again, this comes from Atomic Habits. So you don't want to be giving yourself these big goals like I am going to be learning English an hour every day, 5 days a week. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yes.
But when it comes to small talk, start small. Go and get one loaf of bread from Woolies and say hello to the cashier. It's going to be such a quick interaction because it's one loaf of bread, right? Their job as customer service is to make the conversation with you. You just have to reply, but make sure you're asking the question back. How are you? Because in Australia, it's expected that you ask back because a lot of people don't realize when someone says, how are you? And you say, good, they're waiting for that, how are you back? And if you don't do it, you could be seen as rude. So these kind of small interactions, saying hello or good morning, smiling at a local, going to Woolies to buy one loaf of bread or one item, that's how you're going to start building those habits to build confidence and to start talking to people.
I think so. What you've said is hitting the nail on the head because this was said just once when I was during orientation week at Deakin. This was just said once. And it's very difficult to remember all these things. So I feel that there has to be probably a system or a process in place where like international students and migrants are reminded about this like again and again, because whatever is repeated again and again, we tend to remember those things. And that is why I feel writing, again going back to writing, if you keep writing the same thing again and again, people are going to like understand what you're trying to talk about. And that's what I think. So even I try to do with my writing is that I'm just going to write again and again. And even 3 months later, you're going to be seeing me doing the same thing again.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, it's so incredible that what you've talked about today, even though it's talking about reading habits and books, but there's so much of what you've said that can be used in so many different aspects of one's life, whether it is like building habits or building up a skill, whether it is learning a language or improving a language, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's professional, personal development. So I think what we've talked about today, even if some people, maybe they don't enjoy reading, maybe they're not readers, but I think there's a lot of really great key takeaways here that can be implemented in different aspects of their life.
Yes, everything is a byproduct of personal growth. Like you work on yourself and you will be able to learn a lot of things about yourself and also about the world around you.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So to finish up, Mohit, how can people contact you for more information if they are interested in learning more about what you do and how you help people?
LinkedIn is a place for everything. If you want to contact me on LinkedIn, if you want to check my work, have a look at my LinkedIn profile.
Great. Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been incredible. It's so interesting. I've loved it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Amanda. Thank you.